country has a major social crisis on its hands. For instance, in July 2009, when the Boko Haram group started its terrorist activities, the very first set of members arrested in Bauchi State, northeast Nigeria, as belonging to the Jamaat al-Sunnah li Dawi wal Jihad, that renamed themselves in March 2015 as the Islamic State in West Africa, were largely Almajiri students. The Boko Haram extremists are known for their deadly campaign against education, which explains the adoption of the Chibok and Dapchi schoolgirls, the massacre of Buniyadi schoolboys, and the repeated attacks on the University of Maiduguri and other schools in Mubi, Adamawa State. Nigeria is a secular state, but Boko Haram is about the highest price the country has had to pay for the decades it did not take any interest in the Almajiri children, some of who have regrettably fallen prey to the recruitment drive of those breeding terrorists in the country. This is one of the Almajiri schools in Sokoto State, northwest Nigeria. This particular one was where former President Goodluck Jonathan in 2012 formally inaugurated the Almajiri school system in the northern part of the country. This Sangaya model boarding school located in Gaji in Sokoto South local government area of Sokoto State is one of the 165 Almajiri schools designed in 2012 and constructed by the President Goodluck Jonathan administration across states in the northern part of the country. A total of 15 billion naira was expended on the supposedly 165 school projects in an effort to take 10 million Almajiri children off the streets, with some of the schools gulping as high as 100 million naira. We met with Magaji Mwazu, member of the then Presidential Technical Committee on Almajiri, who told us the history of how President Jonathan came about the construction of the Almajiri schools and how the schools will not take the millions of Almajiri children off the streets despite the huge investments by the Nigerian government.
The Almajiri school, as conceived by the administration of Goodluck Jonathan, was designed to mop up the Almajiris from the street and provide a decent learning environment for them with a view to basically curtailing the menace of Almajiri in northern Nigeria. It was a very noble idea and it was very well thought out. However, when the implementation arose, I think I was part of the technical committee that went around northern Nigeria, met with quite a number of stakeholders, including the emirate system, the Islamic scholars of various sects, and the feedback they gave us was that this is a very orthodox traditional system, and we should be very tactical or careful about modifying it totally. When we came back, we gave a basic design to government that we shouldn't ramp it up to a classroom level. And then, of course, when it went through the system under the leadership of Namadi Sambo then, as the most senior northern official of the government, it came out as it is today. We highlighted that because of the conservative nature of the establishment, there may be some resistance and hesitance from the establishment to convert their orthodox schooling system to a totally classroom-based teaching system. And that was highlighted as a risk, but it was risk acceptable at that time. Today, after such a very heavy investment, we are realizing, unfortunately late, that that problem will just not go away. And therefore, the schools are not being fully utilized. If you go around the schools today, you will see quite a number of them have been literally abandoned. And the actual Almajiris that are supposed to be in the schools are not in the school. So I will say it's a program that has a noble intent, but to a large extent have not achieved what it is supposed to achieve. And it has not solved the problem that it's supposed to solve.
Muazu obviously knew what he was saying. At the Almajiri Integrated Model School in Kwami, local government area of Gombe State in northeast Nigeria, where there are no seats in most of the classrooms that are already deteriorating and in need of urgent maintenance, we saw but just a handful of pupils in only one classroom. And at the Gaji Almajiri School in Sokoto State, the population is only 266 after 6 years, when the first set of pupils who started in primary 1 in 2012 should be graduating. Mustafa Falawa is the head boy of the school and about the only people who could speak in English language, even though he needs interpretation in Hausa language from his teacher to express himself.
How is the school?
Fine.
Fine, okay. What of the feeding? They give you food the way it should give you?
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to become when you grow up?
As a soldier.
You want to be a soldier? Wow. So that you defend Nigeria?
Yes.
Okay. That's nice. So, you were in school yesterday? You were in class yesterday?
Yes.
What did you learn?
English, Maths, Hadith, Arabic, Fiqh, Sira, the Arabic.
Okay. So you and your mates, you're okay, you're fine. What do you want government to do for you?
Wamuk. And also, they wanna, ta gyara mana makarantar mu, ta gyara mana ƙauyukan mu inda babu titi ta samu mana ruwa da dai sauransu.
Okay, you also need mattress.
Muna bukata.
The story is not different elsewhere. As in Bauchi State, northeast Nigeria, pupils at the Almajiri Integrated Model School, which we visited along Jos Road, cannot also speak in the English language. It is worrisome that the objective of integrating Western education with Islamic education in the Almajiri schools has not been achieved after 6 years of the investment. In addition, investigations show that most of the pupils admitted to study in the Almajiri schools are not indeed the true Almajiri children that the schools were designed and constructed to train.
My name is Abdul Jalil Ahmed.
Okay, which class are you?
2 class.
2 class?
A.
That is primary 2?
A.
Okay. How is the school here? You have enough teachers?
A. Yes.
Okay. What would you want government to do for you and your fellow students?
Kaman dai dacan a kaman can karamar hukumar ta ɓalle da nake ba a samun karatu da yake yin yanzu a nan, da kuma karatun nan dai da bambanci da na can, saboda nan ana kulawa sosai musamman mata wajen fannin malamai, ana kulawa da mu wajen sosai, ana samun karatu.
Why children who are not Almajiri have found themselves in most of the Almajiri Sangaya integrated model schools, the real Almajiri children remain on the streets, roaming and begging for food and arms, with the federal and state governments doing nothing to get them to the schools that were built for them, but are today largely half empty. The only thing that would have compelled the Almajiri children perhaps to enroll in the schools is enforcement of the Child Rights Act of 2003, which provides, and I quote, "Every child has the right to free, compulsory, and universal basic education, and it shall be the duty of the government of Nigeria to provide such education, and that every parent or guardian shall ensure that his child or ward attends and completes his primary school education and junior secondary education. This law, however, has not been domesticated in most of the states with the highest population of Almajiri children who are out there roaming and begging on the streets. As at the last count, 12 of the 36 states had not domesticated the Child Rights Act, and these include Adamawa, Bauchi, Borno, Enugu, Gombe, Kaduna, and Kano states. Others include Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, Yobe, and Zamfara states. This is the street in Gaji neighborhood of Sokoto South local government area of Sokoto State, northwest Nigeria, where the Almajiri School, inaugurated by former President Goodluck Jonathan in 2012, is located. But just down the road and barely meters away from the Almajiri Model School, we spotted these Almajiri children roaming around and begging for food. And as we drove down the street, more of them were in sight. We stopped to interact with them, and the shocker was in their ambitions to teach in the Almajiri schools they attend, just like their teachers and malams when they grow up.
Do you get enough food every day? Do you get enough food every day? Does he want to go to school? So why is he not in school? But there's free education for Almajiri.
Bye. Bye.
So if he gets to school, what does he want to become in future?
Malam.
After talking with us and eating the food we bought for them from a vendor, off the children went to continue with their roaming the streets in search of what to eat before sunset. Amongst the Muslim faithful, Almajiri is a very sensitive and touchy issue for most people. We spoke with some clerics on the teachings of Islam about the Almajiri children and the instructions they receive from their teachers, the Malams.
Almajiri as a system, it has roots in Islam because it's a name given for people that move to look for knowledge. They call them Almajirun. That is, you move from your house or from your community to that place where you seek knowledge. And we know that seeking for knowledge is compulsory for everybody, either male or female, either old or young. So there's no connection between begging and seeking for knowledge. No, it's not part of Al-Islam. There are the scholars or the malams that have these children within themselves. One is because of poverty. It's not part of Al-Islam, as I said earlier on. You see any malam that house these children in his house, it's because he doesn't have means to feed himself and his family, and he's using that as an avenue. It's wrong. It's not practicing what Islam says. It's very, very involved. Islam frowns at it. It's committing sin Islamically, because children should not be part of money making. They are not the one that's supposed to cater for themselves. We as parents are the ones that are supposed to cater for them.
Allah refers to children as innama amwalukum wa auladukum fitna. They refer to children there as a trial, a problem. And in another place in Surah Al-Kahf, it said that al-mal wal-banun zinat. It says that children are a beautification and endowment to us. So whichever one it will be out of the two is in the hands of the parents. So if you carry out your duty upon them, you feed them, you clothe them, you educate them as Islam has instructed, then there will be a beautification to your life and a blessing and endowment to you. But if you abandon them, just look at what the Quran says. It says they will become fitna, they will become trials in the community, a calamity. And that is why people like the Boko Haram and others, we easily get them, to employ them for these evil acts because they are found doing nothing and nobody is taking care of them. So in Islam, from Islamic perspective, that should not be allowed. If a child, the education of a child is a duty upon the parent, not the child, him or herself, searching for how he's going to educate himself, feed himself. No. In fact, Islam says you don't leave your child alone until it reaches the age of 40. That is when we believe that a child should be able to think on his own. Even when he has gotten married, he has a job of his own, he's living alone, the parents must still be there to watch his steps, to be able to guide him from his own experience. So by the time he becomes 40, now he has joined the League of the Elders, so he should be able to live on his own. But for us to see children of 5 years old, 8, 9, 10, in fact, it's a calamity, and Islam does not accept that at all.
Many Islamic countries do not practice this Almajiri. So if you equate it to right away Islamic system, then you will ask yourself, why are other Islamic nations not doing it the way we are doing it? So there is either misinterpretation or cultural impute into the system. But I think in my view, there is more social issues to it than Islamic. Because like I said earlier, a man who has 2 or 3 wives, have 20 children, and you ask his basic income, he's probably just a school teacher, if you're lucky, or a megad, and you still have these kids to feed. They have to find a way to survive. Now, the social setting has allowed this man to take 15 of his children and dump them somewhere in Yobe State and come back, and he will be praised as having given his children Islamic education without the responsibility of feeding, without the responsibility of clothing and decent shelter. So you could see that the social setting has allowed one to get many children and escaped from his responsibility and still be accepted as a responsible father. So this is social, this is not religious. Now we need to tighten the discussion on responsibility, like I said, parents and the society. And then properly look at what Islam said about parenting and education. And then we will find out that there is a different interpretation of what Islam recommends and what we are practicing. But that discussion must be at the highest level of our society, with the stakeholders, with beneficiaries of this Almajiri system, with people who believe it is right, with people who believe there's nothing wrong. We have to have that discussion and do a reality check on our system. It's not going to be a smooth, easy sail, but it is change, and change sometimes can come with a bit of stress and conflict, but we can resolve it by demonstrating goodwill and intent. And then God will help all of us, because this is about humanity. There may or there will be a resistance from the scholars themselves that manage these Almajiris, because it is known that some of the scholars do not necessarily operate this Almajiri system as an educational system. To some of the scholars, it's an enterprise. To some, it's a social followership issue, more like a political group, where the more Almajiri you have, the more influence you have. And if you try to change it radically, you might get into the resistance of being pitted against the teaching of Islam. But we all know that if you look at the entire world, the only country that allow its children, young children of 4, 6, 12, on the street begging without decent clothing, without decent guarantee of the next meal, without education. Literally, Nigeria is in the top of any country that does that. No Islamic country I have visited, it's neither Malaysia or Indonesia, or Egypt or Saudi Arabia, or Oman or Qatar or Abu Dhabi, none of these countries allow their kids on the street like we do. Even in Nigeria here, it's peculiar to our part of the country, which is the northern part, because there are Muslims in the southwest, and they don't allow their kids to do this. Even the south where Muslims are. In fact, even Muslims that actually get some education, I won't allow my kids to be on the street begging. I will structure an educational system that will make the kid becomes a good Muslim. We have had privileges of our parents taking us to the Islamia schools. I have done Makaranta Allo, but it's my backyard. I go there, I take the Quranic slate, I read the Quran, I write it, and I wash it and clean it up, and write again. But it's my backyard. I come back home and I go to primary school. These things are doable when we are serious. But it amounts to abdication of parental responsibility as well. The way we breed children, and I remember when Sunus Lamid Sunusi, the current Emir of Kano, raised this issue about the responsibility of the community, the parents, the society, to look at this issue and tell ourselves the honest truth. And a lot of uproar on his position, but it's the reality we must face.
AIT, sharing the African experience.
We raise issues.
Get powers to the states, to the zones. Let the people begin to do their own things, fend for themselves, contribute to Nigeria.
We build issues.
The only reason why we are here today is to be able to protect the interests of our people.
Analyze issues.
Act to criminalize people who have openly decided that they should defraud. For me, this is corruption in another form.
Authoritative, accurate, and timely. Follow us as we go inside the parliament.
AIT, sharing the African experience.
Adaku.
Sir.
You have been released.
Hey, I won't go house, go see my younger ones. Now because of that, the sickness, now I never go since. Yes.
Okay, let me think.